Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a review on the Apple TV Plus movie, The Gorge. So, before I head into this movie review, just a quick warning. I do not plan on having any sort of spoilers in this particular video while discussing this movie. That being said, though, the way this movie kind of is, I might kind of sort of itty bitty bit spoil a little bit of something, but again, what was in the trailer for this movie is up for grabs. Let's put it that way. If it was in the trailer, I'm going to talk about it in this video. But beyond that, I won't go into any more details, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's get going. This is going to be my review on the Apple TV Plus movie The Gorge, starring Miles Teller and my girl, Anya Taylor-Joy. So if you have no idea what The Gorge is about, let me read off the IMDb plot summary. Two highly trained operatives become close after being sent to protect opposite sides of a mysterious gorge. When an evil emerges, they must work together to survive what lies within. Intriguing, mysterious. What the hell is it? Let's discuss. Like I said, no spoilers, but yeah, if it was in the trailer, it's up for grabs, okay? So, how did I feel about The Gorge? For the most part, I was really pleasantly surprised with this movie. Yeah, guys, I ended up liking it quite a bit. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I definitely really enjoyed it. And I think the big thing for me, why in particular I enjoyed it as much as I did, is that there was just something about it that felt a little, I don't know, a little fresh and unique and original in its own weird sort of way. There's just so many movies nowadays that are based off of something already existing, if you will. Whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or something that's a franchise that's already been established. And The Gorge is not based off of anything. Now, yes, we'll kind of get into that here in a bit as I get further into this review, because this movie is loosely inspired by a poem by T.S. Eliot. But yeah, it's not based on some big franchise. It's not based on some big, huge book or something that's already existing, you know? So I think that's why I just really kind of enjoyed this movie. It was just kind of unique and fresh, and I really liked the concept and the premise. And honestly, I think what really makes this movie work is definitely your two lead performances by Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy. They are just really wonderful, terrific actors. I feel like they can just do no wrong. even if the material around them is not that great, the thing is, the two of them always elevate any given thing that they're in, I feel like. And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. I really truly feel like their two performances elevated this movie to make it better than what it probably should have been to some degree. Oh yeah, and Sigourney Weaver's in this movie too, you guys. I keep failing to mention that Sigourney Weaver's in this movie. She's not like a big, huge role. She kind of has a scattering few scenes throughout the movie, but her role is still really pivotal and important for what it is as you get deeper and deeper into the movie. Because I kept thinking to myself, okay, how is Sigourney Weaver going to kind of go through this movie ultimately? And yeah, overall, I found this movie to just be a really fun roller coaster ride. It's a bit of a mashup of a couple different genres in its own weird way. It's a 2-hour movie. Let's start there. I like that this movie was 2 hours. It was able to tell the story that it needed to in 2 hours, and I don't think it needed any more, you know? So in the front half, the first hour of the movie, it almost plays out kind of like this rom-com, you know, with a bit of a thriller, espionage sort of thing to it, if you will. As I said, the whole premise of this movie is about two really highly trained operatives. They're both like specialists in the field of, you know, sniping people. They're both snipers. So they have both been sent to this mysterious pit, this gorge, this canyon, if you will. They've both been sent here because they're the top in their field, And there's a reason why they've been sent. As you kind of get through the movie, there's a really specific reason why the two of them have been sent here of all places. It's not just because of their special skills. It's kind of a little bit more dramatic and deep than that, to some degree. But they've both been sent here, and yeah, Miles Teller is on one side of the gorge, and then Anya Taylor-Joy is on the other side of the gorge. And they have both been told that they're not allowed to communicate with one another in any way. They're just there to do their job and make sure that what's down there does not become a problem. But of course, this being Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, being two young, attractive people, they figure out a way to communicate with like little signboards, and it made me think of Love Actually. You guys, you know, the really iconic scene from Love Actually when Andrew Lincoln is holding up his little signs to Keira Knightley about how much he loves her. It kept making me think of that. So they do communicate. In the first hour of the movie, they find their own way to communicate, which was adorable, and I loved it. And that's how you kind of get the rom-com elements of this movie to some degree, because it's really super sweet and cute. Their communication, their back and forth, their sense of humor, how they're both just super witty, and how they communicate their backstories to one another. And yeah, a very, very minor spoiler, but again, I think it's kind of established in the trailer. They do connect at some point. They are able to meet face to face, and the gorge is not between them. I think that's definitely a dead giveaway that will happen at some point. It's kind of the circumstances of how does that happen. And I definitely found the front half of the movie to be thoroughly entertaining and engaging. I was here for their weird, cute little romance. And it's the second hour of this movie where, yeah, I can't really get into spoilers, obviously, so I'm going to try to skirt around things best I can. Once again, if it's in the trailer, I'm going to talk about it briefly, though. The second hour of this movie is where things really kick up a notch, and all of a sudden you're kind of thrown into a different genre of this movie. Like I said, the front half almost feels like a rom-com. The second half is where it all of a sudden turns into like this, I guess a science fiction thriller. Is that the best way to describe it, I think? This is where things get really action-packed and insane and crazy. You gotta put your thinking cap on and kind of think through some of the things happening. And yeah, this is where you get a lot of like the big CGI, and yeah, the creature reveal. Again, I'm not going to say that's a spoiler, because in the trailer you do get a creature reveal of a sort, because I think a claw, you see the gorge and like a claw comes out, and you see that, so you know that there's something strange and nefarious down in the gorge. So the whole thing of this movie is trying to figure out why exactly are these two people on these opposite sides trying to protect this gorge. What's going on? What is this big thing lurking in the background that you kind of had to work through as the audience, and as Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy are working through as well. You know, their ignorance is your ignorance as well, and I really loved that aspect of the movie. You know, that I never really entirely felt a step ahead of them. You know, I felt like I was on this journey with them. And like I mentioned very briefly, I did mention that this movie is very loosely inspired by a poem by T.S. Eliot called The Hollow Men. Miles Teller, his character, Levi, very, very early in the movie, he mentions this poem at some point. And I literally stopped the movie, you guys. I literally stopped the movie when he mentioned this poem. And I paused it and I did a Google search and I read this poem really quickly. It just took me like maybe 2 minutes to read this poem. It's not very long at all. And I'm glad I paused the movie and read the poem, because I feel like it gave me just a little bit of a deeper understanding of what to expect going into this movie, and kind of maybe the thematic messages that the movie's trying to convey. So the poem, let's talk about the poem really quickly, because I think it's worthwhile to kind of discuss the poem and kind of give that deeper context to the movie. Like I said, the poem is called The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot, and it was written post-World War II. And when I was kind of just doing my really quick research about kind of the meaning of this poem exactly, the common analytical elements that many people were getting from this poem is that it's very despairing and it's melancholic, and there's a spiritual emptiness. I kept seeing the words spiritual emptiness in a lot of people's analysis of this poem. And yeah, the gorge is supposed to reflect, I think, post-World War II attitudes. And I found it really intriguing and interesting. And yeah, I don't want to really go too much deeper into that, because again, it does get into spoilers, and I think it kind of ruins some of the enjoyment of kind of those reveals that come out. And yet, speaking of the more thematic messages of this movie, because it is loosely inspired by this poem, I definitely saw that the movie was trying to incorporate some of those elements to some degree. But at the same time, those elements, like I said, the spiritual emptiness, the despair, the melancholy, those are such big things. Those are such big feelings and attitudes. And the movie did its best trying to convey some of that to some degree, I think. But at the same time, those messages and those themes are just, they are far weightier than what this movie kind of is in some ways. So I do feel like the movie kind of failed in that regard a wee bit, that it was trying to be more, I think the movie's trying to be a little bit more thematic and grand with its, with its messages, but it didn't entirely come across, because again, the last hour of this movie, it does turn into a big CGI thing. There's a lot of CGI, the creatures down there in the gorge, obviously, and kind of ultimately what is going on, so the movie was trying to convey those themes and attitudes to some degree from T.S. Eliot's poem, but again, those are really weighty issues, and this movie kind of fell behind a little bit, because it turned more into this action adventure romance sort of thing. But speaking of the CGI, I do think this movie had a really great budget. I think it knew what to do with its money. It knew where to hold back and rein in, where to use practical effects. I think the CGI was really well done in this movie. There was nothing that was really like distracting to me that I was like, oh, this is bad. So ultimately, what I'm trying to get through with this review of this movie, I liked it. I personally really enjoyed it, and I liked it. I was totally here for the relationship between Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy. They're two characters. Like I said, they're both like these really super soldier snipers almost. This movie is going to either work for you or it's not. And if you did not like this movie, I don't blame you. Because this movie, I feel like you might expect it to be a certain way, and then you might be really disappointed with the second half. Or it could even be vice versa. You're upset, you don't really like the front half, but you love the second half. It really kind of just depends what you're looking for with this movie. It's really hard to kind of talk about this movie because it's like I want to talk about spoilers so bad. But I liked the movie in general. It worked for me. I liked that the movie never felt rushed. That's the thing. It never felt rushed and like it was trying to do too much, because like the front half of this movie, it really allows you to connect with these characters, connect with their relationship that is blooming, just when it shouldn't be, when it's kind of forbidden for them to even be talking to each other. I love that the front half is like slow enough for you to really kind of get a sense of this world, these characters. And then that way, when things really go crazy in the second half hour, you don't have to worry about their relationship being built up in any sort of way. It's already been built up and established, and now it's kind of this live or die situation that they're in, and they got to try and help each other out if they want to live, So I like how the movie worked. It's very clearly divided into two separate movies almost to some degree, but it worked for me, and I liked it. Again, I definitely recommend you doing further research about this movie, because I think it's really hit or miss with people, depending on what you're looking for. And you guys, I can't believe this. I'm sitting here looking at my notes. I can't believe I forgot to mention this as well. The second half of this movie, not only is it loosely inspired by T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Man, I was definitely getting Dante's Inferno vibes. Oh my god. I have to leave this review mentioning this, because I kept watching the movie and I was like, oh my god, this feels so familiar. And I was like, I know why it feels familiar, because I feel like this is Dante's Inferno, and I love that book. I love that book. Again, not going into spoilers, but if you've seen the movie, you know kind of the imagery that Dante's Inferno inspires, and this movie definitely has kind of that imagery that you kind of associate with Dante's Inferno. And I guess that's pretty much it for this review. If I did this as a spoiler sort of review, I could go on and on for another hour, you guys, if you let me. But yeah, in the comments below, definitely tell me your thoughts on this movie. If you loved it, or you hated it. How did the thematic elements of this movie work for you? Like I said, I think they kind of fell to the wayside a little bit, because I think this movie wanted to be more thematic than what it was kind of given to some degree. So that is it for this review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.